Well, a short time ago, Canadian military history was made in the nation's capital. Canada now houses its first female chief of the defense staff.
I believe in our Reg Force and Reserve Force members who serve their country with pride and courage, and in our public service professionals whose contribution is essential to the success of the Canadian Forces.
General Jennie Carignan addressed military officers and dignitaries during a ceremony at the Canadian War Museum. She takes up the post at a challenging time. There are ongoing concerns about recruitment and what many say is a toxic culture in the military. There are also spending pressures as NATO and growing challenges in the Arctic. General Carignan takes over from General Wayne Eyre, who is retiring after more than 40 years of service. CBC's Kate McKenna joins us now from the War Museum. So, Kate, tell us more about today's ceremony.
Well, it is official. General Jennie Carignan is the new Chief of Defense Staff, and that happened here this morning in front of the Prime Minister and the Governor General, the Defense Minister. And we heard from her in her new position for the first time. She spoke of how proud she was to serve with other members of the armed forces, how long she's been in the military. She's been in the military since 1986, and how she's excited to take on this new role in a period of transformation within the military. She also talked about how she is the first female Chief of the Defense Staff. Here's what she says it means to her.
I've done this because I love it. And I mostly love the people who are part of this and then give generously of themselves every day. So this is what it means to me, is that I get now to lead these fantastic people in very difficult times. It's not going to be easy, folks. I'm telling you, there's nothing that is going to be easy going forward. But I'm so proud to be able to do this job with this absolutely fantastic team.
We heard this morning about her work that she's done overseas. She was involved in a NATO mission in Iraq, as well as in Syria, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, as well as Afghanistan. So this is someone who's been very active in a leadership capacity in the Canadian Armed Forces for some time. We heard Defense Minister Bill Blair say she was the obvious choice, not because she's a woman, but because of her background and her successes within the armed forces. And she did speak a little bit about her most recent role, which is she was tasked with working to improve the culture in the Canadian Armed Forces following a series of sexual misconduct criticisms, or rather allegations, that were made in 2021. She says that's something she took to heart. That's something that's still very important for her, and that work continues, but that is just one of several challenges that the armed forces are facing at this time.
Yeah, walk us through what some of the other challenges could be. I know she highlighted recruitment as a big one today.
Yeah, recruitment and readiness is one of the main challenges currently facing the Canadian Armed Forces. And one thing that I thought was interesting was the outgoing Chief of the Defense Staff, Wayne Eyre, kind of gave his speech as he was leaving the position to give it to General Carignan. And he talked quite bluntly about a lot of the challenges facing the Canadian Armed Forces, and particularly the challenges facing the world. He said that we're in a period right now that for many Canadians is the most dangerous period they've lived through. And he, of course, was talking about geopolitics. The war in Ukraine was something that he talked about, and the stakes that exist right now, in addition to misinformation, which he highlighted as being one of the other main areas of concern for Canada at this time. But there are a number of internal challenges as well. And the main one that has been highlighted here today is recruitment, because there are more people currently leaving the military than joining the military. So in order to increase Canada's capacity to respond to things, its readiness to respond to things, recruitment needs to be handled. We heard from the General saying that this is a priority for her, that she's hoping to build some momentum and get more people through the doors and more people into the military. But certainly one of many challenges facing joining the armed forces at this time, but also an opportunity, a time of opportunities, perhaps. We heard recently Prime Minister Justin Trudeau saying he's willing to, or he's planning to increase military spending to hit NATO's 2% target of GDP spending by 2032. So perhaps a transformative time for the military in the coming years.
Okay, Kate, thanks so much. That's the CBC's Kate McKenna in Ottawa. Joining us now is Tony Batista, a senior associate with the Sandstone Group. He's a retired Canadian Armed Forces colonel who served in the military for 40 years. Tony, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
You've known General Carignan for many years. We've heard her described as a trailblazer in the forces. How would you describe her and her strengths?
Yes, indeed. I have known Jennie Carignan for the better part of 2 decades. She is certainly very articulate, very focused. Yes, a trailblazer in many ways. And I'm very confident, and I congratulate her for taking on this very important position at this very crucial time, both for the armed forces, for Canada, and for the world.
Yeah, we heard her talking about the #1 priority as she sees it right now is recruitment. Just how much of a recruitment crisis is the forces facing right now?
Well, I will make 2 comments. One is that it's not only about recruitment, it's also about retention. People, you can recruit forever, but you also have to make the armed forces a place that people want to serve in, and therefore retention is very important. But I will also comment that as her role as Chief of Defense Staff, her #1 and #2 priorities are that she is the senior military officer in Canada to provide unfettered military advice to the government. And that may include how to increase the armed forces, how to retain the benefit package, the capabilities, and all that goes with it. But it's her unfettered military advice to the elected officials, namely the Minister of National Defense and the Prime Minister, that is her #1 legislated role. And her #2, of course, is to exercise command and control of the Canadian Armed Forces. And that comes with all sorts of additional duties because the profession of arms is in her hands right now.
It was interesting how she made this connection. I felt, anyways, when she was speaking, that she said she wanted to channel Canadians' investment into readiness and capacity, and just that connection that this is what Canadians are investing in is their armed forces, and I just wonder how important even that messaging is, that it's something that Canadians want to or are investing in. We've seen this big push in terms of that 2% spend on defense, 2% of GDP that NATO, the NATO allies have been pushing Canada to step up and to deliver on.
Well, 2 points there, Jacqueline. One is that the declared increase in defense and security spending by the current government is welcome. And therefore, the Chief of Defense Staff also needs to work very diligently with the Deputy Minister, who is responsible for procurement and providing the means for the armed forces to be effective and ready. And so, yes, the Chief of Defense Staff has a very important role to advise the government on how now to proceed with that aspect. But the second point is that the Chief of Defense Staff also needs to connect with Canadians directly, because Canadians want to hear from their most senior professional military member in Canada and hear what the real issues to their personal and national security are all about.
We also highlighted the importance of this appointment, that she is the first woman to take on this role, and she touched on the the situation that the military is facing in terms of the culture and the sexual misconduct crisis it's been dealing with. She said specifically there are perceptions and unconscious biases that still exist. But she says we have the ability to open doors so women can serve in the capacity in which they want to serve. And just to kind of come back to that recruitment and that retention component that you highlighted as well, how important is it for her, or how much of a role do you think she could play in sort of setting that tone that women are not only welcome in the armed forces, but that they'll be supported and that they can succeed there?
Well, she is a woman, and that speaks for itself. She is qualified to do the job, and I think leading by example is the best way. There's no need to make a monumental message here. She will lead by example, and I am confident that young women, young Canadians, both men and women, will want to join the profession of arms. With her at the helm, I think it's extremely important that such things as discrimination and racism be completely stomped out from the Canadian Armed Forces. She was working on that as chief of professional conduct and culture, and I think that aspect must continue.
Tony, it's great to get your insights on this today. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was Tony Batista of the Sandstone Group in Ottawa. He is a retired Canadian Armed Forces colonel.